Welcome to Art's Place, conservative talk from a different view, from the Casablanca studio in Golden, Colorado. Hosted by Art Carlson. At 4'6", liberals fear him, and conservatives love him. He's definitely a giant among men. Now here's your host, Art Carlson.
Yeah, welcome to Art's Place, conservative talk from a different view. Welcome to the show. It's great to be back from a short hiatus over Memorial Day weekend. Had a great weekend. Did a ton of fishing. Had a blast. So hope you all had a good vacation. So let's start bringing up my co-hosts for the show. It's great to be seeing those guys back again. Up front, the leadoff hitter, all the way from Muskogee, Oklahoma, Lloyd Mendenhall, the grumpy vlogger. And then winding up this rotation, let's welcome all the way from Syracuse, New York, the effervescent Mike Roach. Welcome,
hey guys.
Welcome, guys.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, I'm batting cleanup, huh?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. Well, with me, there's
Hope
a lot
you're
to clean
feeling
up.
better today.
Yeah.
Good.
It's actually a little too many daiquiris is
That will do it to you.
To be honest with you.
So you
but you have to get over that stuff.
Yeah.
But
you're not as young as you used to be either, right?
no, and right, I'm staying this age. But seriously, 59, 60 just has a different ring to it. So, I mean, just the sound of it. So, I'm going to start lying about my age.
Yeah, it's all downhill from there anyway.
Right.
So,
well, good to see you guys.
good to see you too.
And I'd say happy Memorial Day and happy D-Day, but I hate when people say happy.
Happy.
You know what I mean? It's not right. I realize people just do it, but you know what I mean? It's weird.
Well, they're like last weekend, they were happy to have a 3-day weekend or a 4-day weekend, depending on where they work. You know, they're happy about that. Good for that. But, you know, it's like I didn't show last week, but I put up a remembrance of what it was all about. You know, and that's what, you know, this younger generation, they all think, hey, it's a day off. But
yeah.
And it is that. I mean, you know, it's fine to have hot dogs in the yard and this, that, and the other, but it's you know, it's kind of like Christmas. Or like Thanksgiving. People call it Turkey Day and stuff. And I don't know. It's a little thing, but it bugs me. You know, it's not Turkey Day. It's Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, yeah.
But I'm getting to be grumpy like you, Lloyd.
Yeah.
So anyway,
it comes with age. I've been practicing this for years, though, so I think I was born grumpy. So
came out and slapped the doctor.
I think so. Yeah, that's what I've heard. I've heard rumors to that. So, yeah. The only one left alive that could even come close would be my brother, and we don't talk to each other enough that he would.
Okay. Interesting. So today is the 77th anniversary of the D-Day invasion.
Yeah.
So very interesting. I'm going to bring up the casualties. The Allied figures for D-Days are, you know, nobody really knows what the exact account, but Stephen Ambrose cites 4,900 Allied troops killed, missing, and wounded. But that's on the first day. But if you go to U.S., let's see, the first 24 hours, Normandy tabulated 1,465 killed, 1,928 missing, and 6,603 wounded. But in total, we had 22,119 casualties. And that's 2,811 killed, 5,665 missing, 79 prisoners, and 13,564 wounded, including paratroopers. Now, the Canadian forces, they had 946 casualties, of whom 335 were listed as killed.
Yeah. We're coming down to we're going to be one of the last generations that remembers what D-Day is about, you know.
Or knew anybody that was in it.
Or knew anybody who was there. Yeah. Yeah.
Because we were all born like almost right after the war ended. I was born 15 years later, and Lloyd, you were what, 5 years late?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Right. I'm the tail end of the baby boomers, but my dad was a World War II veteran. I think all of us would, especially if your dad was in the war, it was just the war, and either in the East or Europe, either way. I mean, that's what kind of makes it part of your DNA, especially.
Yeah, my dad was in the European African theater, and he got taken out in Italy just before, not too long before D-Day. He was in the tank destroyers, and he was wounded in the Po Valley. And my uncle actually all three of my uncles and my dad were all in the war. There was one uncle who didn't. He was the youngest, and he stayed home. He's the only one who died during World War II. He was killed in a car wreck at home.
Sounds like you got a little D-Day action going there in the background.
Yeah, I do. I don't know what. Some idiot started ringing our doorbell, at ungodly hour this morning, like at, 10:30. Which it's a Sunday. I don't know who he was. Somebody's at the front door. Yeah. I get up and they're gone. And it's like, I don't know who they were. They probably wanted to cut down a tree limb that's hanging in my front yard or something. I don't know. Didn't care. Leave me alone. Get off my lawn. But anyways.
I hear you, Lloyd. As I get older, it's a lot easier to be rude to someone who's at the door that you don't want there.
Yeah, yeah. And, but as I was saying, my dad was in the European campaign. My uncle, his next closest brother, was actually at the Fall of Corregidor at Bataan and survived the death march and was a POW during that whole time after the Fall of Corregidor. And then my other two uncles were both in Alaska on Coast Watch. One was in the Army Air Corps, and the other one was on the on the long guns, the big 105 millimeter howitzers, or the big guns, and that's what they did during the war. They were they repelled the Japanese that attacked Alaska.
Oh, my dad was in the Pacific Theater. He was in the Army Air Force. He was radio and radar repair in the 1089 Signal Company.
Oh, okay.
Yep. Yeah. So I'm going to show a picture of where the battle was, and okay.
Just want to say hi to Ray Kelly. He popped in there.
All right. Hello, Ray and Michael. Michael,
Chris?
your toffee is on its way.
Hello, Cap. How you doing?
There it is. Yeah, and as you can see, the map there is United States. We landed at Utah and Omaha, and the British were at Golden Sword, and Canadians were at Juneau. And the thing about this that was amazing is how we really got the Germans thinking that the invasion was going to be further to the east at Cherbourg rather than at Normandy.
Right.
Because in England, we put up these fake tanks and fake vehicles, and they were all, inflated tanks.
Right. Blow up airplanes and tanks and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah. Cardboard, wood, whatever they could come up with. There was. I just watched a movie about, or a show about that, and there was. I think it's Ireland. Was watching. There were spies for Germany and Ireland, because Ireland did not support the war, and because they were anti-English. They didn't want the Germans to win either, but they weren't going to support England, and so there was a lot of spying in Ireland, and they allowed some information to get loose, and the Irish did. They picked it up through the British and stuff, and they allowed it to be released. But in reality, it was all based on all that fake stuff. So they went there to check on it. The Germans sent their people in. Oh yeah, there's tanks built up there, and they had aircraft flying over. Yeah, no, they're building up right there. They're getting ready to come across there. And of course, it was all fake. They kind of used the Irish-German spy network against them. So,
right.
I wished I could remember the show that I watched, or I think it was a movie. It was really interesting to hear how the British knew there was spying going on, and they used it against the Irish, or against the Germans. Yeah.
Didn't they also, the Germans knew who General Patton was already. They, studied each other. And they had Patton up in that area too, I believe, where the artificial stuff was, because the Germans were tracking his location, kind of like we knew who Rommel was and all that.
Well, yeah, because Patton had been down in North Africa fighting against Rommel, so they were well aware of Patton's blood and guts reputation. My dad, who served under Patton, said it was our blood and our guts. It wasn't his, He waited until it was all clear, and then he ran up forward, and then led the tanks after the. My dad was a tank destroyer, so they were the lead. Those things were I think it was the M10. Those were open turrets and did not have the armor protection that a tank did. But yet they were the lead for starting any tank battle. They sent the tank destroyers in, probably because of the type of guns they had, and I do not remember now. I used to know all that, but I can't remember it now. But so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Patton, I believe at this time, they were already in Sicily, and they were getting ready to hit Anzio on the Italian peninsula.
Yeah.
So, it's hard to believe when D-Day happened, less than a year, the war was over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what they did before the invasion is they softened up the fortifications. They did a lot of heavy bombing, and just before the troops went ashore, we had our battleships and heavy cruisers and the British as well. They were bombarding the shore with their battleships.
Yeah.
And then they stopped, and then the invasion came in. So that's why the casualty rate wasn't really out of whack. So
yeah,
but the bad thing was when they sent the paratroopers in the night before, they all landed in the wrong areas.
Yeah. A lot of things went wrong.
Yeah, there were.
And it wasn't just paratroopers. There were gliders that had a bunch of troops and tanks inside.
Yeah.
That's true. Yeah. Yeah, there was a lot that went wrong with that.
Movie on the invasion is Band of Brothers.
Yeah, that talks a lot about that was the 101st.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, it's something that coming up. It's 77 years now, and there's only so many World War II veterans left, and so many dying per day, and I imagine on the 80th anniversary there'll be some still alive, but certainly by the 90th anniversary, no.
Yeah.
And, so.
And here's what the invaders had to deal with. Big guns like that raining down as their landing craft were coming ashore. And then they had... did you guys ever see the movie The Longest Day?
Yeah.
That was all about D-Day.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen it.
Yeah. It had John Wayne and just about everybody else in it.
Yeah, it did.
Sean Connery and
Peter Lawford.
Right?
Yep.
God, I don't know. I can't.
Didn't it have Robert Mitchum?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It wasn't even Richard Burton in it.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, everybody.
You know what he may have.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I can imagine. You can only imagine Stephen Ambrose.
Yeah, I was just reading that.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cover you up, Mike.
No, that's okay. I mean, but just imagine being a 19-year-old kid on going in there on a foggy early morning, overnight sailing over, and then, you go up and people are just getting annihilated all around you. And I mean, man, it's, and so many of them, like you just numbered off, Art, never saw another day.
Mm-hmm. That's true. That's true.
My dad was actually on the old end of he was in his late 20s. He might have been 29 when he was in there, because he was in the Army for 5 years. He got part of the New Mexico National Guard was split into two parts, and one part went to Europe, the other part went, as I said, both my uncles were part of the New Mexico National Guard, but one went to Corregidor. The other one, my dad, he went to North Africa. Well, he went to Italy, then they went to North Africa, or he went to Europe, I should say. Then they went down to North Africa, fought that campaign until that finally ended, and then he ended up at Anzio. And that's about when he got. Actually, I have an account. I got to dig it out again, and it was when he was going for his disability, his 100%. He'd been disabled since he got out because he got shot. He had a piece of shrapnel go through all the way through one knee, and then hit the other one and go out. Or it blew out both his knees, and then his, I think it was his left hand, severed the nerves.
Ooh.
Because he was standing there like this. He had his leg hooked over the top of the turret and was standing there directing fire when an explosion hit. A piece of shrapnel came by. He dropped the binoculars and fell backwards because his leg was just kind of dangling. But I have a report that tells the whole scenario that was written by his immediate CO, who was a captain at the time. And he tells the whole movement. And they go into detail about, they were like, he lost track of my dad after he was wounded because they had gone forward to do some observing. There was a major or somebody that wanted to get an extra ribbon that day or something, and he pushed them forward, and my dad was the lead tank destroyer, and they all argued with him. He said, nope, we're going. So he'd go up. So his CO, his immediate CO, went forward with another guy, and they actually got caught behind enemy lines. It took them 2 days to get back, hiding and ducking, and what they would do is they'd come out, they'd throw a hand grenade at some of the troops and then run like hell to get back in there. Basically commando stuff, for the 2 days they were on the run to get back. And they saw, what happens, they went forward and they saw another division of American tanks haul them back the other way because there was a whole unit of Panzers on the other end. So it's really interesting to read the firsthand, stories. I mean, I've heard them from my dad, but this was from a different point of view. This was from an officer who was writing all the details he could remember. And I've got these letters, and I just found them last year. They were in a bunch of my dad and mom's stuff, and I hadn't gone through a lot of that, and I started going through it like, wait a minute, what is this? So when they did a commemoration in the New Mexico National Guard, they needed a story about my dad because they had one about my uncle. Matter of fact, the museum for the New Mexico National Guard, World War II museum, there's actually a commemoration to the Bataan Death March. In the theater there that shows all that is actually named after my uncle. So it's commemorated to him. But they were putting some commemorative plaques out there, and they were putting up one for my dad. They needed the story to go with it. So I dug through this and found it and, typed it up and sent it to my cousin down in New Mexico who had it put there. So, but it was real interesting to see it from the soldier's point of view that was there at the moment, not what we see all these armchair quarterbacks that have gone through and, well, this could have been done. This is what happened. This is the way it happened. Don't know what was going on around me, but this is what I was dealing with,
Right.
Which the best way to learn history.
Yeah, it's funny. I found a new YouTube channel, and there's a website associated with it too. It's called Legends of World War II, Legends of WWII, and it's interviews with all these guys, old guys, who some of the interviews are 10 minutes, some are 40 minutes, and just going on about what they dealt with on an individual basis. And to listen to these, this like library of guys telling, well, here's what we did, and and it's touching. It's just hearing them tell those stories, and at that old, see that old body, and knowing that when he was young, he was in a house with guys fighting off Germans, and so many of the things that we see in movies, like say Private Ryan or whatever, those experiences happen to many people very much like that. And to hear that, in Private Ryan, we watch it, we know it's a movie, but to hear it from the people who really did this stuff, it's just touching. And to hear it from someone who's then had to come home and live their whole life afterward. I don't know, something. It's a good channel to check out if anybody wants to see it.
I remember my dad waking up from nightmares from the war.
Yeah.
My dad, the same way, when he first got home, because their house was near some railroad tracks, and every time the train came by, he would jump out of bed thinking that there was an air raid or something.
Yeah. I remember my dad, I think I was 16, 17. I remember him still having nightmares over it,
Yeah.
And, you see stuff in wartime that you'll never see anywhere else. And
what's sad is those guys never got the treatment that today's vets get for PTSD.
No.
Because back then, nobody knew about it. They never...
Shell shock.
Yeah, right. Shell shock.
Referred to it as shell shock, yeah.
And that goes all the way back to World War One. World War One was, that was a meat grinder because those soldiers were on those trenches right on the line, and that line went back and forth so many times, and what they would do was, it's called creeping barrage, where they would start lobbing warheads over no man's land to try to soften up the area, and then it would stop, and then the soldiers would go out and hopefully take over an enemy trench. Sadly, many of them never made it.
Yeah, and it's funny how World War One, before World War II, of course, they didn't call it World War One. It was
they called it the Great War.
The Great War, or the war to end all wars.
The war to end all wars, yeah.
And it was really a whole different ball game because of technology and tactics that then World War II, which was truly a world war in that it was just about on every continent except for Antarctica, so
yeah.
But where World War One was mainly Europe.
No, there was some fighting in the Pacific and in Africa.
Yeah.
Yep. Because the Germans had colonies in the Pacific and in Africa, and
that's true.
Basically, it was a clash of monarchies in Europe. It was the end of a lot of those empires, and that started the downward spiral for a lot of those monarchies. Because after World War II, especially Great Britain, they lost all their colonies.
Yeah, they lost their empire. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I watched a video last night, talking about World War One, and it wasn't about World War One, but it was about the death of Queen Victoria, and you had Edward VII, who was the Prince of Wales, and then you had his nephew and her grandson, who was Kaiser Wilhelm.
Mm-hmm.
And they were both with her at the bedside, and then yet another, and that was in 1901, I think. Another 16 years down the road, they were at war with each other.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Kaiser, he hated the British. He blamed them for his birth defect, because he had a partially paralyzed arm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
well,
that's the thing though. His grandmother, he was at her bedside, held her hand while she died, you know. And so he didn't hate the British so much that he, you know, hated his grandmother, who was the queen of the British Empire, you know. So I think a lot of that came in later. And of course, World War One, you know, that war was started, of course, by Ferdinand being assassinated. Well, yeah, the anarchists, the Serbians. But it was an accident. They tried to kill the Archduke and his wife. They lobbed a hand grenade, and of course they hit the car in behind. So they rushed them all off and got them to a place of protection. And they said, "All right." And there'd been many attempts on his life by then, and they said, "Okay, we got the guy. You know, we got the guy that threw it. We've taken care of it. The assassin is taken care of. Let's go back and finish up this parade." He says, "All right, but I want to go see my friends in the family, those members that were in the car behind us that got hit, because they missed his car and hit the car behind him." And he says, "I want to go to the hospital." So they said, okay. So they set up the security perimeter to go to the hospital. They forgot to tell his driver, because they were supposed to go to the hospital first and then go on to a parade route, which would have been secured differently.
Oh.
But instead of going to the hospital, which is what they were supposed to do, the guy just went back on to the main route again, where they had just had the assassination attempt. Now they had the first guy, and the rest of the anarchists had dispersed except for one guy. And he saw him coming through. He stepped on the ring, pop, pop. That was it.
Yep.
And it was only by accident that the driver had not been informed, because they weren't supposed to be on that route that time, the second time.
Right.
They were supposed to be on their way to the hospital, which was a different direction. They took a wrong turn, and that's how World War I started, just by one wrong turn. I mean, it literally was just that.
Right.
Right.
So,
yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, it was going to happen eventually, but it wouldn't have.
Yeah.
It might not have happened to the extent that it did.
Right.
You know, but when they killed him, you know, that's when. Let's see, who was he with?
He was part of the Habsburg family. He was a minor.
Was he Austrian? Austrian dynasty?
Well, he was no. He was actually Serbian, but he was related to Emperor Conrad. Conrad was.
Yeah.
Oh no,
well, he was the heir.
Joseph. Franz Joseph was Joseph. The king of the Austria-Hungary.
Austria-Hungary. That's what I thought. Yeah, and they invaded.
They invaded Russia.
Was it Russia?
Yeah. Well,
first
it started off in what we call Yugoslavia.
Right, yeah.
And that was, they were fighting
Bosnia.
The Croats and the Bosnians.
Right. Croatia. They went into, and they went after them. And that's when Russia says, oh, they're our allies, and they stepped in.
Yeah.
And of course, it just escalated from there. But yeah. It's amazing that
there was no Poland. There was no Ukraine. No. I mean, there was no Yugoslavia. This was, it was just a conglomeration of different ethnic groups that were all under the Austro-Hungarian Empire.
Right.
Where Germany had they had territory going all the way up in the Baltic area.
Yeah. Yeah.
Finland was part of Russia at that time.
Okay. Yeah. I couldn't remember all my geography. You know, that was the thing. I studied early English history. We're talking, from 1066 up until Henry VIII, you know, and especially the Hundred Years' War and the War of the Roses and the Plantagenets, or however you agnates, and that group. And I heard so much about the war from, well, my grandfather was in World War One. My dad was, uncles were World War Two. Uh, so yeah, I heard all those stories. I thought, I'm not interested in that. I've been listening to that all my life. You know, I'm going to study something different. And I like like I said, from 1066 on up to finally Henry VIII. Well, then
that's quite a
Elizabeth
period. You know, I
it
mean,
is. Yeah.
it was wild. It's never, you know, how many years of peace have we had in the world compared to how many years of war? I think war is actually the standard. It's like there's always a war somewhere, pretty much, you know, and so. But if you go back to 1066, you're talking, you know, before the Crusades, right? And you know,
William the Conqueror, William of Normandy came in and God.
No. Anyway, but yeah, with D-Day there, I only knew one guy who was actually in the D-Day invasion, kind of a relative, my brother-in-law's uncle, and I had no idea. I'd known him, and you know, when I was a little kid, the adults would play poker at holidays, whatever, and I went over his house to swim as a kid, about 13, 12 years old, whatever, and he sat down at the pool and took off his leg and jumped in the pool. I was, you know, freaked out. I had no idea he had an artificial leg. He lost it on D-Day. I'm not sure which beach, but you know, and he and one of my uncles, who was uninjured, are the only two people that I actually knew from, you know, D-Day. And because you know, a lot of those guys, they didn't talk about it all the time. They just hushed up. And, which is pretty amazing when you think about it, you know.
Well, in 41 years of my life, or 40 years of my life, I should say, because my dad died just after my 40th birthday. In that 40 years, you know, I heard a lot, but when you compare it to what you hear now, it was minuscule, you know. Occasionally I would hear a story here or a story there, you know, and that was 5 years of his life. I mean, we're talking 5 years of training, of slogging through the, you know, riding through the desert, and I mean, just day-to-day stuff. You don't hear that, you know, and they didn't talk about that, you know. Something, you know, if there was a movie on there watching, that's not how that was. What do you mean it's not how that was? And no.
I think a lot of them were just glad it was over with, and they made it home, you know, and you know, wanted to forget about it. But one of the you know, there's so many war movies, but another good one is I'm sure you guys have seen it, The Best Years of Our Lives, with the guys are coming home, and you know, it's different, and it's kind of a anti-war movie in a sense.
Isn't that with the guy that had the artificial arm?
Yeah.
He played a Navy guy, but he was actually in the Army in real life.
In the Army, in real life,
but, and they gave him a special Oscar, I believe, for that. And he did a pretty good job of you know, acting. And but following those three guys coming home from the war and what their different experiences were, I think was pretty clever and really, really well done, you know. And so, and of course, last weekend being Memorial Day weekend, Turner Classic Movies, I got to say, give them credit. They did pretty much play war movies all weekend, just about. I looked at the schedule today, and you know, granted they had a lot of them last weekend. Not one more movie today on Turner. Now, granted they killed it last weekend, but you know, nothing this weekend. So
Well, we're celebrating a different cause this month.
yeah,
You know.
I can't get away from that. Everywhere you go, it's there.
Yeah.
Commercials.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's when do we get a month? When do fat old white guys get their own damn month?
There we go.
You know?
Yeah, Gimp Day. Yeah.
Yeah. Gimp Day. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, we got to get the GIMP
I want a
flag.
whole friggin' month.
What's on the GIMP flag?
Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, crutches and braces. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
And a wheelchair.
Right.
There we go.
And of course, a guy. I think I've told you guys this, but I used to, when my kids would do something stupid, I'd go, "Oh, you having problems there?" I used to make fun of that until it happened to me, and I was in a wheelchair, and suddenly I'm like, having seizures and stuff. Like,
Right.
Yeah,
we're making fun of stuff
so
like that.
how's that pop? Fun.
Yeah.
Thing is, though, even though we're in it, we still got to make fun of it.
Oh, yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I know
Yeah.
I do.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
Lloyd, were your kids going up to you? Whatever you can do, I can do better.
Yeah. Yeah, the bad thing was they'd mouth off to me and then get out of my way, and I couldn't reach out and smack them. Except when I had my crutches, when I started getting to where I could ambulate a little bit, and I started using crutches, I'd reach out and smack them with a crutch.
Yeah, that's what I did. Yep.
Those forearm crutches are great for that because they're like an extension
yeah.
of your arm.
Mhm.
Like a
They're
lightsaber.
kind of like metal lightsabers.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because they've got that perfect handle. You know,
Yep.
it would be perfect if you could put a firearm on the end of that too.
Mhm.
Oh,
Yeah, but
Alrighty,
Yeah.
so let's get into some politics. So, what has been going on? The latest thing is now the investigation of where did the virus come from. Remember, for a long time, the media, oh, it didn't come from China. It didn't come from China.
it's
Now
a
we're
natural
finding out
mutation from
it
bats.
Yeah, it came from a wet market in China. Yeah.
I know. You know, it's after this past year. I don't know. You know, if I watch any news, even Fox, even Newsmax, whoever, I don't know what's truth and what's not. You know, I really don't. I wish I had a place to get at least hear absolute truth, and there is none.
No,
Not to
both
mention
sides.
CNN and all those whack jobs.
Yeah,
No.
yeah.
It's,
You know, I told you that like in February of last year, I went up to the VA hospital. They already had the COVID protocols in place. This was in February of last year. It had was just starting to. I don't know if it. I think the first case had just happened in the United States, but they already had the VA hospital in Muskogee already had it in place because they shut down all the entrances. You had to come in through one. They started asking, had you been to any of these places? They were wearing masks. I just started to zip around because I thought they were just doing a survey or something. I had an appointment upstairs and did. I said, no. And you could only go in the one door and out that door. They had a divided area where, you know, that was your way in or out.
Soylent Green is made of people.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it was they had that in place
They
back
go
in
in,
February.
but they
Think
never
about
come out.
Yeah, they go in and never come out. Boy, that's about the truth of the VA hospital sometimes. But but I'd heard early on that this had come out of a lab, and I don't remember where I heard it. It wasn't on the news. It was from somebody. I think it was somebody I knew, and I won't say who they are or where I knew them from, but they sent me some info and said, yeah, this is coming out of this a lab leak in China. Like, well, okay, whatever,
Which we were funding. And
which we were funding, yeah.
Who started that? Oh, Anthony Fauci.
Yeah. Well,
that was during
it was
the
under
Obama
the Obama administration. Yeah.
Yep.
There's an echo here.
Echo.
And the thing is, the fact that we send, what are we doing sending a nickel to China for study and trusting them to be, partners in study of viruses? I mean, come on, everything in China is related to the military or the government, and granted, it was in the big picture, not the total funding of that lab or whatever, but the fact that Fauci, from day one, he was, wasn't exactly letting us know what he knew. And,
with his email releases now, that are coming out, it's like, obviously, he didn't have a private server at home. If he'd had one at home for his emails, well, a little bleach bite or whatever that stuff, a bleach bit or whatever they cut.
Yep.
Smash your phone with a hammer and you're all set like Hillary.
Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Which makes you wonder, how did he ever get a medical degree? As stupid as he is, how did he ever get one?
Yeah.
I guess he's dumber than a box of rocks. I'm sorry, he just is.
I think he got his degree from some medical school in Grenada.
Well, that's true. God, wouldn't it have been wonderful if he'd have been one of those that was down there, got stuck down there?
Yeah.
And we'd have just left. If we could go back in time and find out he was at the Grenada School of Medicine, and we could have left him there with the Cuban government, wouldn't that be a wonderful way to change all this? If we only had a time machine.
Yeah. But,
so the federal government has dispersed a lot of helicopter money to all of these states to deal with COVID. Colorado was one of them. So what did we do? We've got a lottery. Whoever got the shot was eligible to win I gotta do this, $1 million.
Yeah.
So we had last Friday was the first of 5 drawings, and sadly I wasn't one of them.
Well,
so
better
I want to
luck
bet
next time.
how many of you. I want to bet you guys that all the winners are going to be Democrats.
Yep.
Well,
that's
they're
one
doing
of the
it here
things,
too. Lottery tickets.
Well, that's one of the things they were talking about. Whichever idiot that started that whole thing in the first place, they were going to use voting records. Well, why would you use voting records? He said they were going to correspond it with their voting records so they could put them in. Well, that's going to tell whether they're Democrats or Republicans, And was it Michigan they started this, or
I think it was Ohio or
Ohio?
Somewhere in
Ohio. Yeah, Ohio. That's right.
Yeah.
And they were going to use the voting records as
wow.
as well as they had to have proof, because that's the other thing. That's a HIPAA violation for them to know whether you got a shot or not and to publish it, because you win, they're going to publish it. Yeah, I got a shot on such. That's a HIPAA violation.
I don't know, because you're already here in Colorado. If you don't want to give away your who you are, you can't get the money. You have to acknowledge that.
Right, but everybody, the way they originally set it up is anybody who had the shot. Well, the only way they would know, even if you do give permission, you have to give permission for specific reasons on that HIPAA. And I don't, ever remember seeing on a HIPAA form for Judy or myself where it says, so I can be in the lottery.
Yeah.
They're getting that information illegally. That's my opinion.
Of course, the judges aren't ruling that way.
Listen, I would put my foil hat on, but I ran out of tin foil the other day, so I'll just move on.
I know it's it's crazy. It's like I did get the shot reluctantly, but I did.
Yeah.
And I got the Johnson & Johnson one time, and all I had to do was show my driver's license. Now, isn't that racist?
Yeah.
According to what they tell us, having to show identity is racist.
You can't show ID to go vote, but hey, go get your vaccine shot.
Yeah, I don't know. It's crazy.
Also, here in Colorado, we got some money for transportation. Actually, what happened was the legislature decided to raise the gasoline tax, but they're not saying it's a tax because we have the Taxpayer Bill of Rights, and in order that's where the public gets to vote on tax.
Right. Yeah, we have that here
on
too.
Tax. So to get around that, they call them fees, and
surcharges.
The way it's okay is because the state Supreme Court said, you're right, it's not a tax. So that's how they get around it. So they just passed a bill where they're going to raise $3 billion for transportation. You would think, oh, well, that's good. They'll be able to fix the roads and bridges and the power grid. Less than 1/3 of that is going to go to roads and bridges. Everything is going to go into bike paths.
Oh, God.
And trails. All the nice green things. So what they're going to do is they're going to take a perfectly good street and take 1/4 of that street to where it's going to be a bike path. Yeah.
That nobody will use.
That's right.
Practically nobody.
Yeah. And it jacks up the traffic, or you'll have to make it to where the traffic is only one direction. So it just totally screws up the whole driving pattern, and you get gridlock.
Well,
I'll tell you,
Democrats love gridlock.
This last year, with all the different states doing this, other states doing that, it showed us how many stupid, jackass, incompetent governors we actually have in America.
Oh, yeah.
Like the one from Oregon and Seattle and Michigan. And, it's like these people are dumb. And they're elected into office, but boy, that doesn't mean crap in terms of smarts. You might have weaseled your way into office or something, but boy, what a bunch of dumb, incompetent people. Huh?
It's good to be king.
And then, like you said, Art, with the money supposed to be going to highways, and it's like, well, you raise the taxes on something, people are going to use less of it, for one thing, and try and save money or leave the state.
The more you subsidize, the more you get. Like homelessness. We subsidize homelessness, and we get more of it. And now the Denver and a lot of major cities that are run by Democrats are going into the shitter because now they're subsidizing homeless people.
Right.
Yeah.
And if some of these idiots would stop, people, oh, here's a ham sandwich. Oh, here's some home-cooked meal. Let's stop doing that. Let's start finding these people and they'll stop doing that. Let's make it uncomfortable for these people, and they'll say, you know what? A nice warm place would be nice. Maybe a job where I could, be productive.
Yeah.
No, well, they want to have, we'll pitch a tent and we'll do all the meth we want. Yeah.
They have a job, Art. Whenever Antifa needs a crowd, they show up.
That's right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
No.
Yeah, Oklahoma just dropped their COVID emergency protocols about 2 weeks ago now. And we also have dropped the special, we've discontinued use of any federal money coming under COVID. We've dropped the special unemployment bonus.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to go back to work.
Right.
Not Colorado. No, we're using that money to bribe people to go back to work. Yeah, that'll work.
Yeah.
You know, if you work for 2 months, you'll get $1,600.
Well, I think we've got a work bonus for certain fields, but they've got to work 6 to 12 months before they're going to see anything. No 90 days, 30-day jobs. They're going to have to work for it. And I can't remember exactly. Actually, they may have decided not to do that. They're just cutting their unemployment. So, yeah, sorry, get your job.
That's what the
5,000 jobs available right now. You could get one if you want it.
Yeah, there's tons of, hiring signs everywhere.
Yeah.
But they can't get any people to work because they're making more money on unemployment than they do if they work.
Yeah, that's why they discontinued it here, the bonuses. And now I have a cousin who's semi-retired. Well, he's retired at the moment, but he'll go back to work because he knows that, one, spending 24/7 with his wife all day, all night. I think about another month he'll go back, but he's got the money. His company shut down. They paid him out. He worked to transfer the company to its new place in Texas. Got huge bonuses for all that. And stayed away, So plus his 401k and his profit sharing and all that stuff. He's got that to live off now, and he's going to look into when he can actually start drawing his Social Security, and because he's at that age, he's just about, if he's not ready to draw it, he's getting close to it. So he may work part-time, until that time comes up. But right now he's enjoying it, but it's like he calls me either late at night or early in the morning. It's like, okay, if I'm up late, then I'm not up early, so then you need to figure this out. Don't be calling me at 8 o'clock in the morning. I don't get up early. I don't have to go to work. But he's got too much time on his hands now.
Yeah, it's I'm glad that about half the states now have turned down that federal money. It's those holdouts like New York and California. Boy, they're going to be the last to give up a nickel, coming in, even though it's ruining everything, and so it's crazy. Able-bodied 30, 40-year-old men sitting home playing video games because, the candy's coming in. I got the summer off. I'm good to go. Why look for a job? And from what I've heard in the states where they have, removed that federal money coming in and cut off the unemployment, all of a sudden employers are getting lots of calls, for
imagine that.
Yeah.
Oh.
So I've got a grandson who turns 21 in 3 days. He was working until the COVID thing kicked in. He came down with COVID. He had to take off. when he went back, they said, well, we're shutting down our store anyways. He worked for J.C. Penney's at the time, started that in high school, and in sales. Well, he's started out stocking, ended up in sales. But he didn't let that deter him. He started looking, and of course, his younger brother was home, so he drew his unemployment for a little while until till his younger brother started going back to school. His younger brother's got autism, so somebody needs to kind of, and they couldn't. They were all in the same house, so it was safe for him to stay there. To go take him over to grandma and grandpa's house or grandma's house, wasn't conducive. So he stayed with them, and then as soon as things went back to normal, as quickly as he could, he got engaged, moved up near Oklahoma City, got him a job up there, and he's working. And he's been working, and here he is, 21 years old, and he's been working whenever he could. There for a while, he kind of went through that thing that you do when you're 18, 19, 20 years old, like still living at home. I don't feel good. I don't think I'll go into it. Now that he's paying his own rent, he's busting his butt learning the hard way, and it's good,
Yeah.
So.
Right.
But, yeah. But I'm proud of him for that, because he's doing that.
We've done an hour, so we were pretty productive for coming back with the week off, and I want to thank you guys for coming, and all the folks that came in the chat. I want to thank you, Chris Wedgeworth, Robert Glazer, Elvis Grumpy Vlogger guy, and B-Mac, Brian, and then we have, Michael, Tex Arc Drone guy, and then we got Ray Kelly, and that's about it. So I want to thank you guys for coming to the show. You all have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.